started. Okay, we're recording. Okay. Welcome, everybody, to Sunday Mornings with Twitchy Woman. I'm Sharon Prisher. I am otherwise known as Twitchy Woman. And I'm really excited because we have as a guest today, John Dean, who, if you look at his credentials, MACCC-SLP, it means he has his master's in speech and language pathology. And I only know that because I was an audiologist, so I was started out in speech. I didn't tell you that one.
I didn't
And
know.
today, now that everybody we know has hearing aids, I wish I was still in practice. But anyway, so John and I are going to have a conversation. But before that, I would like to invite Marina, who is my intern she's in physical therapy school, and she's going to lead us in just a couple of power moves just to get everybody energized. So Marina, do you want to do your thing? Just short, keep it short, that's all.
Okay, hi everyone. Can everyone hear me clearly? Okay, perfect. I just wanted to lead everyone with some power moves. So we start with, there's actually 4 moves to start with. And then the first one is power up. Power up just means that we want everyone to be more in an upright position, to be more extended. So we'll have for all of the motion, we want our hands to be outstretched. If you do something like that, you should feel the energy all through your body. So the first motion, up. Have your arms on the side. We can all do it in a seated position. And then put it by the side of your body. Perfect. So we always start with down and then come up. Perfect. And then the second one is power rock. Power rock is more about weight shifting. Yes, exactly. So you reach side to side, as if you're reaching to the opposite, like grabbing stars from the sky. Really thinking about stretching your body up and a diagonal motion. Perfect. And the third one is power twist. Twist is improving our spinal mobility. With our spine moving, actually help with our gut mobility as well. So we have our hands on the side first, and then I want everyone to have that huge clap, as if you're going to the side and grabbing stuff behind you. Yep. And then out here, and then clap to your left. And if you can, feel this further stretch, leaning to the back more. Perfect. And then out again, and then you clap. And then you can add a little bit of stretch to the side. Perfect. And then the last one is a power step. Step is really beneficial for initiating any motion. And that's the first step of walking and any kinds of motion. So basically imagine there's a block or there's a barrier underneath your foot and you wanted to step over. So really exaggerate that motion. I don't know if everyone can see my feet, but let me just lower a little bit. You wanted to step over, and that is combined with your hand. You wanted to step to the side and then come back to the middle and then step. As you step, imagine you're grabbing stuff behind you in the back of the shelf. Up and come back and then step to the back and then come back and then step. Perfect. So we just wanted to combine those 4 motions really fast, and that will be a really short introductory about power moves. If anyone's interested, we'll do more in the future Sunday morning meetings, but also I'm leading a support group and I'm running those exercises every week. Usually I will combine it with music, but since it's a shorter session, I just wanted everyone to do all the 4 moves with me. So we start with power up. Yep. And then power rock to the side and then to the side. And then set up, power twist, clap, and prepare, and clap. And then reset. Last one, power step. Step to the right, come back, and then step to the left, come back. Perfect. So that's a really short warm-up for everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, I found that doing in other classes that I've attended, especially Robert Cochran's, he always starts with some dance and music. Gets you moving, It kind of wakes you up. These are good exercises to do when you get up in the morning because you're stretching everything and it gets your blood moving, which is great. Anyway, okay, so we're going to move on to our speaker. So let me tell you a little bit about John, who I've been wanting to have for a long time, and I ran into him in Phoenix finally. I don't think we'd ever touched base before that. And then when I got home, I emailed him and said, I need you. I want you to speak. So let me tell you a little bit about John. He's a speech language pathologist who works exclusively with people who have Parkinson's and related disorders. He provides exercise and training for Parkinson's over the internet, as well as at special Parkinson's exercise events hosted throughout North America, the UK, and Europe. He employs the latest tools and technologies to bring his experience and expertise to people living with Parkinson's around the world. And I think I'm just going to leave it at that and just start in some questions. So, as a former audiologist who did study speech pathology as an undergrad, what got you into working with people with Parkinson's? Why?
I came to my career for speech actually late. I was actually a musician for a number of years, and I had an injury that ended that ability. I was a professor at jazz studies, and I was a bassist, and something was going wrong with my hands. We couldn't fix it. And when you teach music, I was teaching improv and all that stuff for the kids, and I started singing everything because my hands wouldn't work anymore, and I hurt my voice very quickly. And I met a speech therapist, and I was like, oh, what do you do all day? I could do your job. And it took a little while. I had not very much science with my fine arts degree, and but I got in, and it's right when audiologists moved to a clinical doctorate like physiotherapists do, or physical therapists. I'm sorry, my wife is a European physiotherapist, and everyone else in the world calls them physiotherapists, but in the United States we call them physical therapists. But so yeah, I got into there. Audiologists were becoming doctorates, so we only had 1 year with you guys, and then you all split off with us. And then I moved to Colorado right after that. I was actually working in speech recognition software because I had used that for my master's. My hands wouldn't work. I have rheumatoid. That's what we know now, but back then they weren't sure what was going on. And so I was working out there, and it was almost like a funny story because I had deferred it for a year. I had a fellowship at a really well-known hospital here, so I pushed it out for a year to do my fellowship. And when I got there, the guy's like, hey, I just got this great job in Dallas. And I was like, oh, I just got to Colorado. I'm not moving to Dallas. And so I just started practicing. And maybe about 2 years later, I was working in like a skilled nursing facility that had a rehab. So we were doing a lot of rehab. And obviously, I'm seeing a ton of people with Parkinson's. And so I got trained in LSVT right around the time that they were working with Becky Farley. And Becky Farley does the Parkinson's Wellness Recovery that we were just showed there. But before she did that, she did the LSVT Big. It was a postdoc application. She was finishing up her PhD in Arizona in Tucson. And so they were just talking about how they were going to bring PT into it. And I said, well, okay, I think I can bring a PT and an OT and have me here in this clinic, and we can help a lot of people who aren't getting services. And that was the big issue, is that there wasn't enough expertise. So I kind of fell into it only because I really liked working with people with Parkinson's because they're usually pretty motivated. My fellowship was actually trach and vent, and that was very important work. Those are people on machines after very serious injuries, but it wasn't enough progress or mobility or whatever. And so once I started working with people with Parkinson's and seeing all the great research, I got pretty interested. Maybe about 2 years later, I moved to a clinic. I had an agreement with them where they would let me come up there and run their outpatient program if I could make an interdisciplinary Parkinson's team. And we did that in, I think, 2009. And by 2011, we had like 5 of them. And by 2013, I had a new job where I was just making programs. So I made like 30 of those programs. And they were just PTOT speech, far enough away from the major city centers so that people with Parkinson's would not have to travel too far to get expertise. It's much like the Boss Bloom's ParkinsonNet model.
Unknown caller.
So I kind of fell into it, but in about 2007, I started doing a lot of work in this space. By 2009, everyone was just sending me all the people they have with Parkinson's, and then it just grew from there. And again, it's at a time where there's been a lot of change and good change. Not enough change, but compared to what we were doing in 2007, I remember reading old textbooks in grad school, and they're like, "Don't work these people too hard. Don't push them too hard. You'll break them." And it's like, I mean, you guys are in LA, so you get to see Beth Fisher and you get to see Giselle Pettinger, and I mean, that's nonsense. But back in the early 2000s, so that's my story. And again, now I live in Portugal with my wife, who's a physiotherapist. I met her at a Becky Farley training program. We were on faculty for her. And we do exclusively work only in Parkinson's, but I do most of it online. I'm only in the States maybe 4 or 5 times a year. Usually I'm in Europe.
So we got you at the right time.
Yeah, I came through to do we did one of those in-person programs on the East Coast, one of the boost camps. That's what Josepha and I did before pandemic, because we would land someplace, because I was living in the States and she's in Europe. Someone would hire us and we'd land there and we would make a program up and we would do it for that week. It was a lot of fun. Feels like a million years ago. I don't know if we could do that again today.
Yeah, it's very different. The landscape's different. And by the way, we have people from all over the world who come on here.
Yeah.
It's not just Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So you do much more than traditional speech language pathologists, obviously.
Yeah.
So tell us about some of the other things you're doing, like training boxing trainers.
Yeah.
And what does that have to do with speech? And
well, okay, so when I met Becky Farley I did the training for LSVT, which is the originator, it's the Lee Silverman voice therapy, and now they have the big and loud. But by the time I had met Becky, I was already kind of fighting to have speech included as the dual task that we're doing, because we all walk around all day, walking and talking. We're on the phone. Someone's having a conversation with us while we're putting away the groceries or the dishes. And so I was saying to her at the time, it's like, hey, if you want to add load, if you want to make this more like real life and also make it more work and maybe get some speech therapy practice, we should add this to the work you're doing. And so when she published her book in 2014, I wrote all the breath and voice components for that book that she was working on. And I still believe that. My wife is she's incredibly creative. When I met her, I knew she was doing something I'd never seen, and that's kind of what got me interested and why I started going there. But she's been really open to adding the voice, and that's what we do with a lot of our exercise. Like, this is a green screen behind me. We'll have an exercise class where cognitive load will show up there, prompts like letters or colors or shapes or something like that, and we'll use our voices to practice it. And we'll do a movement. Maybe when it's a certain shape, we'll grab for it, and maybe when it's a different shape, we'll do a different movement. But we'll use our voice all through that. And how that gets to boxing, well, I mean, who here has not heard of Rocksteady Boxing? Has anyone not heard of Rocksteady Boxing? They kind of took over the world maybe a decade, 15 years ago. And when I was in Colorado, we wanted to make our own program. We didn't want to pay the franchise fees. So somebody from the University of Colorado's physiotherapy program, we built a boxing program back then. Josepha worked with a really well-known boxer out of Australia. They've kind of 6 degrees of separation. And we just know it's a good dual task. But again, with our boxing program, we do it with the Northwest Parkinson's Foundation on Fridays. And again, there's some voice parts of this, and then there's plenty of physical parts of it. And then we do a lot of cognitive motor dual tasks where prompts will show up there and we have to punch when we see certain prompts, or we have to do a certain sequence when we see a prompt. And that's how I did that. And it continues to be what I believe is that I think the voice side of this really makes it more like what we do every day, because the original dual task is walking and talking. Did anyone notice when you're walking maybe with somebody and the conversation gets a little too cerebral, and all of a sudden it starts interfering with your ability to keep the pace or maybe the balance or keeping up with it? Mm-hmm. Can't tell. I'm looking at the screen, but I can't tell. But yeah, so that's why we do that. And again, I think we've done training for boxing was the most recent one. We just did that last year in Pittsburgh and in Spokane and in Cincinnati. But before that, we were training therapists in our approach. We actually have a grant from the EU, and that program, we're doing our study on it in 2027. That'll be out available for healthcare providers in 2028 globally. Like we're doing our study next year because it's part of a grant. But after that, it's out there for the world. And it has 8 weeks of exercise for people with Parkinson's to do on their own, and then a 12-week program that we are, I'm sorry, 12-module program that we do to train clinicians. And again, it's that dual task that we like so much.
Okay. Well, speaking of dual tasking, which was my next question, how is that different than multitasking? The reason I bring this up is somebody sent me an article about multitasking, that it was not a good thing to do. And I've always been known as the person who's good at multitasking. It's getting harder as Parkinson's progresses. But studies show that multitasking can significantly reduce productivity while increasing the risk of mistakes and mental fatigue. So
there's some truth to that. Yeah. Well, okay, dual tasking specifically comes from the research. I keep thinking about Tara McIsaac, who was at AT Still for a long time, making the taxonomy in 2015. Before that, Alice Neubauer at KU Leuven probably did some of the more famous research on dual tasking. Initially telling people never to do it. You know, that's kind of the funny part. Again, it's like, oh, this is dangerous, don't do it. But the reality is that we know that executive function, that's kind of tracking where you are in space and time, keeping track of whatever conversations, whatever things may be walking into your space, like an animal or someone. So all the things we do to kind of keep us moving towards our goal, whether that's going to the door or going somewhere in a grocery store, that executive function is definitely impacted by the Parkinson's. And some of that is the ability to be distracted, that some of that is the classic, you know, you go into a room and you kind of forgot what you were in there for because there's some attention parts of that. And so we believe, and again, I think it's being borne out by the research, that the practical application of exercise that combines those things makes it more likely that you'll be able to address them better in real life. Now, I put that completely different than the multitasking, which is, you know, I'm on my phone while I'm watching TV and I'm checking social media, or I'm trying to keep this going in the background while I'm working on something else. That has proven not to be as efficient as people think it is. And again, I'm a big nerd. I'm a big tech person. I've done some work in some startups and I do some consulting. This is where the tech actually fails us because it makes you think you can do more than you really can. You know what I mean? And so that part has a cost. The dirty little secret, though, just to kind of come back to what you were saying, Sharon, is everything has a cost. You know, when you switch from one set to another, that takes energy. That takes basically glucose in your brain to keep that power so you can run that down a little bit. But also by practicing it in a way that's very applicable to daily activities, we're also strengthening it. So it's not just about cardio. It's not just about aerobic exercise. It's also about practical exercise that applies it to what we do in day-to-day life. So did I answer your question, or am I missing parts of that?
I think so. I was multitasking while we were doing it because somebody emailed me and wanted to know how to get online, so I had to
Classic. Yeah.
disappear for a second. Okay, my last question for you has to do with a company you're working with called Remapi, and they were at the Congress and they were giving out these bottles. Now it says Hydrodopa on there, and what they did was they filled it up with M&Ms, which are all gone. This is my secret stash for M&Ms to keep my grandchildren out. They think it's medicine, and it is. So you're serving as a consultant to them, which is they're developing a hybrid digital app plus medication, carbidopa levodopa. I don't get it. If you could explain this to, you know, I don't know, are that you take the pills, but you're given certain things that you have to do? Is that the app? I don't understand.
Yeah, it's a very, in some ways, so what hybridopa is a made-up term. We know that people with Parkinson's, you take carbidopa levodopa, which is a combination pill that is basically Sinemet. It's the gold standard drug. And what they're doing is they're taking that same Sinemet, carbidopa levodopa, and they're pairing it to an app that they've been designing that improves adherence and also increases exercise and also provides some tools for kind of guiding your day to day. So the idea is that you use this digital tool, the app, alongside the medications, which are well known to be good for Parkinson's, and the combined both of those provides better outcomes than either one by themselves. And that's on one hand, that's obvious, yes. If you're going to take your pills and then you're going to make sure you do exercises every day, you're going to do better. The hard part is building the app in a way that actually has some stickiness, meaning people with Parkinson's will use it regularly. And I think that's where they've been innovating. That's kind of where they brought me in, is to make sure that the app is not just designed in a way that's usable, meaning it's got good contrast and the buttons are big and stuff like that. That's one part of it, but also that the exercises that they're doing are interesting and applicable to daily life. And that's kind of where my expertise comes in, because it's textbook to do loud ah. We can all do loud ah like you do if you've worked with a speech therapist, and highs and lows, that's cool. But you're going to need more than that if you're going to want to use this on a day-to-day basis. So that's what their innovation is making an app with the right set of tools on it that makes you stay in there while you're taking your meds. And then the idea is that they'll get better outcomes with that because they'll A, keep you exercising, and B, be monitoring and tracking any potential changes in your condition so that we can alert the doctor.
Okay.
That's it.
So,
It is.
do the exercises vary, or is it the same thing over and over? And the reason I'm asking is I'm in a trial for a different app at Cedars called New
Health, yeah. Dr. Tagliati, yeah.
And it's the same exercises over and over and over. And it's like, I don't want to do these exercises again,
I'll tell you what, I saw Dr. Tagliati at WPC. I did a poster tour and I did the one on tech, and he was the last one. And I'll say that the New Health did a very good job on that study. I think they had better usability, so people used it more. But certainly the compliance with the exercise part, that was definitely a lower score. And I think it's because it's not interesting enough. This is, again, I don't want to pretend that I'm my wife. My wife, to me, is one of the best physios I've ever worked with, and I've worked with dozens of them. I've hired and fired probably 50 of them. But I do think that we make better exercises that are more interesting, that are always changing. And most of our classes are live. We don't record them hardly ever. And part of what we do is we have kind of a structure, and then we see who's in the room and we see how they're doing it, and we change it on the fly to that. And I think that's where all apps are going to have difficulty in the initial stages. But that's certainly where I don't want to overspeak for Remit, because some of their stuff is not in the public, but they're taking a lot of energy to build something that is more dynamic than I think a static app. And I built an app 2013, and by 2015 it was featured at the Blue Ribbon highlights of a big international conference. We're all patting ourselves on the back, and I was leaving the company at the time. I was like, this thing's not working. No one's using it. All the people were excited about it, and they were giving awards to it. But at the same time, I knew we had like 28 active users who were opening it up more than once a week. That's a problem. Now, that was also 15 years ago, so I think Rempe's ahead of that. I think New Health has a lot of potential, but not in that space. I think they're doing better monitoring.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I wear it on my right wrist because my watch on my right wrist because that's the side that's affected. And she showed me what information goes automatically to the doctor, and she can tell when my off times are, when I'm on. I mean, when I'm sleeping. It was pretty amazing, and I didn't think to take pictures of her charts, her graphs, which I need to do next time, because I can't really explain it. But it does give you a visual of how you were doing, which I think is great.
Are you someone who deals with tremor when you're having your off? or more dyskinesias when you have too much meds?
Lately, it's been more dyskinesia than tremor, but
So they can see with the app, obviously tremor is a very easy one to see, although there's a billion kinds of tremor. But what they can also see is less movement, less mobility when you're moving towards off period. And quite a number of people with Parkinson's, I'd say 4 out of 10, don't have tremor. They're not tremor dominant, but they're rigid akinetic, as we call that, meaning that they're not going to have that tremor, which would be the easiest thing to see as an engineer. And it can still see when those off times are appearing because of your mobility changes and your gait symmetry changes and your even where you're putting your weight is changing. So that part's pretty interesting. Probably the best thing you can do with a wearable. Although I will say that, Strive PD does that, Neuro RPM does that, H2O Therapeutics in Turkey does that, Great Lakes Neurotech does that. Orbit Health in Germany, which is on a Garmin platform, I believe, they do that. So it's like there's a bunch of those that can do it. Now, what can you add to it? What can I add? Can I make you more better at complying with your medication timings? Can I make you more interested in doing your exercises? Can I give you better social connectivity with your group? I mean, you were talking about working with Indu. Indu's work on social connectedness is that's a big change. We're thinking a lot differently about that, and that's good.
yeah.
So just being able to see it, that's cool. It's not going to be better than a doctor.
That's why this became popular, because during the pandemic, you couldn't see anybody.
Yeah.
So people started coming online and they started making connections. And we got to the point where we'd end the program and people would stay on just to talk to each other because they needed that connection, for another 15 minutes or so.
That's real.
I'm done with my questions. If you have anything you want to add, otherwise we can ask for questions from our audience. If you have questions, either put them in the chat or you can raise your hand by clicking on the React. There's a little heart at the bottom. Click on React and raise your hand.
And I see 2 of them in here, so I might go with those.
Okay.
To start with. One is from a colleague of mine that I'm working with quite a bit, Tracy McBee. And she says, speak to word banking. And word banking or voice banking is something that people sometimes do if they think their voice is going to stop working in the future. It's not as common in Parkinson's, although I have had some folks later in their disease progression, but I'm talking like 30 years, long into the progression, where that might be an issue. But you can get recordings. There's actually a number of platforms out there, and a lot of them are free, and you can record yourself. And then if you needed to use AAC, and I'm talking that's augmentative and alternative communication like Stephen Hawking used, it would be your voice. And I'll say that stuff has gotten a lot better, but I very rarely use it for people with Parkinson's. Two issues when I'm talking about using something that would look like an iPad or something like that, and I'm speaking by pushing it with a button. There are people that need that, but a lot of times by the time their voice is that impaired, the movement ability has been impaired, and also their vision changes and maybe some cognitive changes that I haven't found to be the best solution. I did see that documentary where they're using 11 labs, and I'm blanking on her name. Someone has to remember her, was using it to speak her narration throughout the documentary, but which I think was a great application. But what they would do in that case is they had her voice already recorded, and then they had all the text. So it's not the same thing as I'm having a conversation with you, and I say, I need to go to the store and get me a dozen eggs, and that kind of communication doesn't seem to work that well with one of those devices. So voice banking, word banking could be something to consider. It's just not going to pop up quickly. So if you're somebody living with Parkinson's for less than 20 years, I'm not saying I wouldn't think about it, but it probably wouldn't be on the top of my list. If you have a Parkinsonism diagnosis, okay, maybe, but again, probably for multiple system atrophy, not for progressive nuclear palsy or something else like that. So again, I don't use it very often in my caseload. And then the other one said, I went to an ENT early on and found that one of the vocal folds was quite weak. very common? Did you maybe had some bowing in the vocal folds? The vocal folds are supposed to be like this, and you blow air through them, and then they vibrate, and then we shape that vibration. It goes, make it go ooh, and then we shape that into speech with our tongue and our lips and our teeth. And the thing is that, usually you can strengthen it pretty quickly. That speech therapist that I went to that convinced me to become a speech therapist, I was doing voice exercises with him, and I got better in about 2 weeks. And I still do those voice exercises now. I still do them, 30 years later, 25 years later. So I think that you can be doing those exercises, and they'll continue to keep you healthy, and you should have like a kind of a maintenance package. But it's also worth seeing your therapist every now and then just to get tracking, because you might not be the most reliable narrator. And I say this to all of us, and like we're all kind of not our best second pair of eyes when it comes to medical things. And so there could be changes that are happening, and some of that could be related to swallowing. Some of that could be related to even things like drooling, which is kind of an area of swallowing, where they may be able to help you solve something before it becomes something that takes more work. So if you catch it early, like you did with your vocal folds, and one of them was weak and now you strengthen it and it seems like it's doing pretty well, you caught it early, you've maintained it. There may be other things like that. So it's kind of what we call a dental model, meaning you go to your dentist every year or every 6 months and you make sure that you're not having trouble. But those are working well. You reminded me that I'm going to show you another device that I would recommend to almost anybody with Parkinson's. It's got a great body of evidence. This version is not the version you'd want. This is a 75. It's called an EMST here, expiratory muscle strength trainer. I'm sorry, my background is bleeding into it here. EMST is expiratory muscle strength training, and this is a device that was developed at the University of Florida, which has an amazing history in speech therapy. Some of the best research over the last 40 years in Parkinson's was from that university. And it's just a device that has a threshold, so you have to blow at a certain amount of pressure for it to engage. And it does a really great job of training. And what's interesting about it is they did their first study in 2009, and they thought it was going to improve voice because you had better breath control, and it actually improved swallowing function because you have to control all these muscles and make it strong, and this muscle down here, this platysma and all these muscles below it have to work harder. And so this is a device that you can go to emst150.com, and that's the one you would buy. I would not buy this 75. I got this for a different reason. I got it for my dad. And it's something that now has research on voice and swallowing dysfunction and drooling, and it's got a great body of evidence. So I mean, there's knockoff versions of it out there. You can buy a cheaper one on Amazon, but I just say it's like $54. It's not nothing, but just buy the real deal because they're continuing to do research. I was just on a webinar there was maybe about 2 months ago, and they're publishing probably 2 or 3 articles a year, so it's very good. So your exercises, Meredith, that you were talking about, that's good. Maybe see your speech therapist every year or so to make sure that nothing's changing. Just like you'd see your PT, you hope, and you're going to see your doctor more than that. And then everyone should consider getting one of these expiratory muscle strength training devices. And not to cross promote, but I do a lot of lectures for a hospital system on the West Coast, on the East Coast. And we're doing one of these in a couple of weeks. I'm going to talk about breath training and not just EMST, but also respiratory function. There's some changes that happen in Parkinson's. So I got more questions. I'm going to keep going down the line, guys, unless someone has something.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. When I'm at a point where they're shifting medication and side effects are significant and could derail, and I don't quite know, what how much we're supposed to suffer in terms of changing meds. I hear all the list of all that you guys share with us, and it's a challenge, and not sure if there are people who are struggling with changes in medication.
Can I just ask a couple questions and maybe clarify first? I know an awful lot about these meds, but I have a master's degree and I'm not a doctor, so I'm going to be careful and just refer back. But what meds are you changing from, or what do you have now, and what have you moved to?
I was with Cinnamate, still with Cinnamate. The only thing that's changed there is they've upped it by half a pill, so nothing significant. But they added on Exelon. I can't pronounce the name. I can't pronounce the name. It's got 1,000.
Yeah, not bad.
Rivastigmine.
Yeah, rivastigmine.
Yeah.
And you're having side effects after taking that Exelon? Is it the patch, or are you taking a...
I've done both. I did the patch so that I had a better chance of it not derailing me, because it's easier to tolerate the patch. But I was allergic to the patch, and turned out just broke out in rashes everywhere. So now I'm back to the Exelon pill.
Yeah.
But we know that that's a challenge, because I've already been on it and taken myself off of it. So it feels like there's got to be something better.
Yeah, I don't know that we have the expertise for that. I think that's something you need to talk to your doctor about.
Yeah.
Well, especially the Exelon is not a traditional Parkinson's med. It's for cognition. It makes cognitive function better. Rivastigmine has some interesting data on reducing risk of falls, which is why donepezil has slightly less good data. But it's one of these cholinesterase inhibitors.
Right.
This is one of those things we were talking before we got on the call about going to my chart and talking fulsomely, saying, hey, I'm having this side effect at this time and it's happening consistently. So a little bit of a diary. I was going to talk a little bit about this. You don't need to have an app. You can just use a piece of paper and just keep a note, or you can do it in your phone or in your computer, and just give your doctor some information, because they might be able to either move the timing of the rivastigmine, or maybe give you a half dose kind of thing, like you said you moved your Cinnamate up like that. The main thing is, are you working with, I think we talked about this, you're working with a movement disorder specialist. You moved to someone recently, is that correct?
No, I've been since the beginning with Providence and Dr. Petrosian.
Yeah.
And Giselle, who is the RN and is wonderful. I've done the My charts.
Yeah. And they're just telling you to hold it together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to Giselle. We need to move on because we've got more questions here.
Sure.
Okay, does John or Josefa work with Cinnamate-induced facial upper chest dystonia?
So let's break that down for a second. Dystonia is the abnormal basically contractions of muscles, and many people with Parkinson's have a dystonia that is relieved by their Cinnamate. So it's what we call a focal dysphonia off period. So when you're off medications, it becomes worse. You might feel some tightening in your shoulder or in your knee. I worked for Davis Finney for a couple of years. He felt it first in his foot, before he got diagnosed. He thought probably I just rode my bike too much or whatever. So you're saying that you have an upper chest dystonia and facial. So are you getting like a torticollis? Are you getting your neck pulling down or to the side or anything like that? Or is it just feel tight when you take the meds?
It's grotesquely tight.
I think you have do you have two mics on or two cameras on by chance, Maureen?
I just canceled, sorry.
Yeah, good. That's it. Okay, good. Say it again.
I get grotesquely tight in around my mouth, eyes, throat, upper chest, my left arm, to the point where it's hard to swallow.
Yeah.
Eat, socialize, have a life. And it's clearly 45 minutes to 1 hour after taking my drugs. And I know you guys did a talk on this, so I wanted to follow up because no one's been able to help me, even though I've asked everyone I know.
So just to kind of break it out, Maureen, first of all, that's a really terrible complication, and I'm sorry because it's not normal and it's not easy to solve, and I'm sure you've had the same. We're leery because it's like, oh, that sounds tough, but I have seen stuff like this, but I think it's everybody wants to go to a doctor and you want to tell them something and say, well, I've seen that 100 times. We're just going to blah, blah, blah. And
Right.
what you're dealing with there is not one of those. So I'm really sorry because that's a cruddy place to be in the world of Parkinson's. Parkinson's is already highly variable. We know that. And there's a billion phenotypes. And you've seen one person with Parkinson's. You've seen one person with Parkinson's. I've probably seen 3 people with Cinemet-induced complications. So that's not that common.
That's why nobody can help me.
I think that's why you need to get to a specialist, and you're going to go through that specialist bag of tricks over and over until you find the ones that work for then, and then it might even change. Have you tried any botulinum toxin to kind of address this or not?
Yes, it does not help.
It does not help. Okay. How about formulations that are not Cinemet but are more like dopamine agonists or things like that? Have that had any difference?
Tried dopamine. I tried just about every drug.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, are you in LA as well, Maureen, or where are you located?
Boulder, Denver.
Oh, okay. My old stomping grounds. You have a lot of talent. You have a ton of talent, really.
I know, that's why I'm so surprised. They just throw their hands up and say, go do DBS. And then when I saw you guys talk about it, I was like, wow, this is the first time. And then Davis Finney talked about it. And then, but nobody has any place for me to go for help.
Well, let's talk about the DBS side of this, because again, everybody, I don't want to get us too far afield here, but what she's dealing with is an unusual problem, and it makes me kind of sad that there's a lot of bag of tricks that we just talked about. I said, kid, have you tried botulinum toxin? Didn't work for you. Tried different formulations of the meds, not working for you. The DBS does sound like it might be something to consider. What about a formulation that doesn't have you turning on and off so much? I'm talking about one of the pumps, like the Bialab kind of thing, where it gives you slower, steady state. Has anyone thought about that as an option?
Somebody did, but I was afraid of, and I don't want to take up too much time if this is so rare, but I was afraid of not being able to turn it off. Like sometimes I just wait for the meds to wear off, and then that's my relief. But that's something I will bring up again.
One thing about the pump is that these new pumps are all subcutaneous. I don't know if you guys remember Duodopa, depending on Europe and the U.S., and it went through the stomach into the duodenum, where the big surgery. These are needles, so if you hate it, you can just take it out. You know what I mean?
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Bialab pump in particular. There's also an apomorphine pump, but I don't think I'd start there. But that's a possibility of giving you steady state that maybe it could be a lower level, and maybe it doesn't either make it as bad, or maybe there's a waterfall effect. Like it's not a problem. It's not a problem. Okay, now it's a problem. You know what I mean? Maybe, and that's a possibility. Who are you seeing? Are you going to see you? Or are you going to some? You're not at Kaiser, or you're not with Avi or anybody like that, are you?
UC Health and Shoots.
Okay, good. So that's a center of excellence. You're not going to have an easy solution, and I think that's why I want you to keep your relationship with, instead of going too many doctors, because I think you're going to have where something's going to work for 2 years, and then we're going to have to come up with another solution in 2 years. I will say that I was at a young neurology training program in Atlanta, like 12 years ago, and I saw some of the first research on DBS. That may ultimately provide you with the best benefits, but that's a longer term solution, and that's a much bigger commitment surgically.
Well, I appreciate it because I trust you.
I think I can hook you up with somebody who does use the Bialab, and you can talk to them.
Oh, thank you so much. You guys have been so
Actually,
helpful.
our speaker, the end of September, I'm not advertising it yet, but she's going to be talking about that. We had a speaker when they first came out with it a year and a half ago. So now we're going to have an update on that. So that will be in September. So as long as you're on my email list, you'll get the notice about that.
Oh, thanks, guys. And thank you so much, John. And I think your classes are just great too. Just a plug for that.
I feel so lucky to do what we do. It happened during pandemic as well. We were doing something for Parkinson's Europe, and then we're still doing it, so it's great. Maureen, the last thing, and I'm going to move on to the next person. Someone's talking about vocal fold issues. Do you ever get to work with Nancy Hilmer in your area? Okay.
Yes.
She's an OT. She's an occupational therapist who did like 30 years of work, and she also was with Joseph and I a lot. I just think she's a great problem solver. So if you run into,
Oh, I forgot about Nancy. Thank you so much.
she's really good.
I'm gonna
She
go to her
teaches
class.
classes in Louisville, so you can get up there pretty easily. But I just think she's a really good MacGyver. OTs are MacGyvers,
Oh,
period. Yep.
yay. Thank you. That's the best. I know her. So thank you.
She's
Thank you. Thank
wonderful.
you.
She's amazing.
I
Yeah.
just
Okay.
forgot. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Enough. Okay, I'll stop. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Happened to be in my backyard. This thing that someone was saying about my ENT says the bottom of my vocal folds are brown from acid reflux, and they put me on Prilosec, a proton pump inhibitor. However, my voice vibrates during exercises. Will my voice ever be clear? And this, what they call laryngopharyngeal reflux. We always talk about gastroesophageal reflux, which means it only comes up to here, where it's painful and annoying. But you've had a situation where it got all the way past into the vocal folds. That's a problem that the medications will definitely help. The proton pump inhibitors have fallen out of favor, but probably not for you. Probably they're going to be a very good choice because they're very effective. But I think that you'll also want to make sure that you're possibly doing the other reflux precautions. So lifting the head of your bed or using a wedge pillow so that you're not completely flat. Because what happens when you're completely flat on your bed is that's how the reflux. Sorry, you can see the top of my green screen there. That's where you can see the vocal fold. The reflux will get all the way there. So if your head's a little elevated, by putting a couple bricks under your bed, it can keep you out of the danger zone. Will it get better? There can be some scarring that's permanent. I'm just saying, haven't seen it, but you'll probably get a lot more function back than you expect. Can I just ask you real quick how long you've been on Prilosec? Has it been more than a couple months? You might not want to talk. That's okay.
She may not be. I don't know if she's still on. Yes, she is. She's muted.
I was muted.
Oh, yeah.
I've been on it for months.
So, okay, and I can hear your voice. Can you just count from 1 to 5?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah. So you can hear a little bit of that kind of rattly stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that again, I would work with a good speech therapist to get the best quality voice, and just wait and see if you get more resolution because you're not constantly injuring it. But yeah, I mean, I'll be blunt, maybe, but it doesn't. You're able to communicate pretty well. Your volume's very good, frankly. Have you done LSVT already or something, or no?
I've been working with PVP, Parkinson's Voice Project.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So doing those exercises, I go moo.
Yeah.
Should be clear.
Me,
Hey, me,
my.
mine, oh, moo.
Oh, moo.
Yeah. Those are just fine. I'm certified in both of them, and they're both fine. LSVT came first. We talk about it more, but frankly, I think Speak Out comes from more of a clinical mindset, so I kind of like them.
Okay, we have the last question we have is, what are your thoughts on LSVT versus Speak Out?
Well, again, LSVT has the strongest base of research, mainly because those people are researchers, although they're good clinicians, especially Cynthia still does a lot of clinical work. I think Lori Rangmig is getting closer to retirement. I'm on a paper with both of them right now. And Lori in particular, Dr. Rangmig, is in New York. She was in Boulder forever, but she popped in on the paper like 2 months in, and it was just like, and it was all pretty good. So it was a great research. But I look at what Samantha's done, Speak Out, the Parkinson's Voice Project in Richardson, Texas, and that's someone who has learned as a clinician how to make this a little more interesting. And first thing she did is some real simple dual tasks, and then she had a book that you would basically get. You would as a clinician, you would put a new person in your caseload and say, this person, here's their address, and then they would ship this book out through her nonprofit, and it had all of the materials. Yeah, and I think I don't think they use the books as much anymore. I think the books got expensive. But as a clinician, like the last thing I would do, like you come in my office and they're like, okay, you're gonna do 2 of these and 2 of those and that, and I'll hand that to you, and then next week you'll be, because it's just, it doesn't make it easy enough for you to do things. And so I think that people in the Parkinson's Voice Project have thought about that. They also thought about that. They don't call it the loud crowd anymore, but when I got certified when she first opened it up, I got certified back in the days of Daniel Boone. Daniel Boone is the speech therapist that she worked with, who's a famous voice guy. I'm not talking like 200 years ago. I'm talking like he just passed maybe 3 years ago. And that loud crowd is a carryover group, right? And they get together and they do the exercises together and they go through the book. And that was effective as well. So again, I think she thinks more the way I would think as a clinician rather than the LSVT people think of as researchers, although they now have Loud for Life. So I think they've also adapted. My rule is nobody's good, nobody's bad. They're all doing stuff that informs my practice, and it's whichever one you prefer. I would be biased if you had somebody who had training in both as a speech therapist. That's probably someone who's pretty motivated to do pretty well in Parkinson's, and that would be cool. But if they have one or the other, they're on the right path. I wouldn't worry about it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, last 2 questions. They're very short, and then we're going to move on. How do we hear about your upcoming lectures, and what is the information to obtain the breath training device?
Let me do 2 things, guys. I'm going to pull up that EMST 150 website. It's super easy. I just actually ordered some more. My father has a COPD, and so they have an inspiratory version, an inhalation version of the device for him. I just ordered it. But for you guys, you're going to use the 150. You're only going to do the, hold on. You're only going to do the expiratory version of it, and I'm just going to put it in the thing here. And I have no affiliation with them, except that again.
And I can put it in my next blog post when I put the recording with it. So just watch for that.
I think it's a very, it's one of the very few one-size-fits-all. Everyone does it. I live in Europe, right? I call my dad 5 times a week for like 10, 15 minutes. We just go through the exercises. That way I know he's doing them because he's 85. And then also we get to talk a little bit, and I get to kind of get my time to spend with him. And so I'm doing it myself. I think it's a very good tool that you could do indefinitely. We're starting to do some research on it for multiple system atrophy, which is not Parkinson's, but looks like it. And so I think it's cool. I would definitely use it, and I wouldn't hesitate to just implement it. I don't think you need to worry about like, oh, should I check with my ENT or I don't think so. Now, the other thing is, how do you see our programs? This is another thing that we've done since pandemic, and again, we're super lucky. I have to be honest, I end up spending a big part of my month just trying to get other nonprofits to do this, but we have partnered with some nonprofits. So all of our classes and all of our educational programs are free. So you can just get to all of them with that link tree. We do them almost entirely in the U.S. The ones we do in Portugal are in Portuguese, and that's complicated. That's a very difficult language. If you speak some Spanish, you're going to be totally lost. It's like German versus Dutch or something. So, but the ones in the U.S., we do them, 5 days a week. And there are, dance, there's boxing, there's my voice plus speech plus communication. I have a cognitive training class. And again, this is something we started doing during pandemic, and it's only a testament to some really great nonprofits and me selling all the time. I feel like I didn't realize how much being a speech therapist was going to involve me selling our services, but I do. But that means that anybody with Parkinson's can go for free. And so that's been pretty good. Again, it was something that started during pandemic, and we've managed to keep it going. Our classes, again, you'll see in Linktree, you'll see some demos of it, but we have green screen studios, so we're all lit up. I'm not in the studio, that's back in the back here. And then all the instructions and the prompts and the cognitive things that you're looking for, you're paying attention to, all show up in the back. And so it's kind of like Lumosity or something like that, except that we're in there and you're interacting with it directly. And it's our dual task approach. So everything's there. And it's, again, everything's free. So I'm not selling anything.
Well, thank you. This was great, very informative. If anybody wants to stay on afterwards and ask a few questions, you're welcome to stay. But we're going to go. I have a couple of slides to put up.
Sure. I didn't realize how much time it is. I'm gonna mute. Here you go.
Okay. Now, Marina's got my slides, so let's see. So our next speaker is next Sunday, Sanskriti Sasikumar. If you can pronounce that, you're in better shape than I am. She's the founder of Collabiora. She's from UCLA and is using AI. I'm not quite sure what she's doing, but come next week. It's going to be interesting. I'll try and put out some more information about it this week. Next slide. So I've actually got 3 speaking engagements coming up. September 16th and 17th is the annual APDA Virtual Parkinson's Conference. It's interesting. They're doing 2 days in a row online. And I will be speaking on Thursday at 1 o'clock Eastern time, I believe. I'm not speaking, but I'm with another person, and we're going to be talking about mental health, identity, and Parkinson's. And then on September 24th, Minot, North Dakota has asked me to speak, and this is also virtual. And I will get all the information out. And then on October 10th, we're going to be having an in-person event in Los Angeles, sponsored by the Parkinson's Foundation, about managing changing symptoms. So if you live in LA, watch for the invitation. It should be out in the next week or so, and plan on coming. It's Saturday all day. Next slide. There's the slide for this. It's from 9 to 2. It's over at UCLA. And I'm going to be speaking on and off during the conference, moderating a lot. Okay, next slide. That's just our end slide. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I know there are a lot of new people who came. I'm going to add you to my email list. If you don't want to stay on the email list, you're welcome to unsubscribe. And any questions for me, for John Dean, for anybody?